The cousin who moved into my home halfway through my life stole the affection of my parents and my older brother. The childhood sweetheart who once swore he'd always stay by my side ended up falling for her too. Grace haughtily told me, "I'm going to take everything from you." I laughed so hard. Who cares about the brainless creatures who can be fooled by a pretentious coquette like her? Chapter 1. I had every reason to hate Grace. Between the two of us, we had a total of 800 tricks up our sleeves. She took 801, and I ended up owing one. Grace came to live with us when she was 14. Her father had died young, and her mother, busy working in another city, sent her to our home. She was a graceful, delicate girl, like an apricot blossom blooming at the tip of a branch in March. Charming, and pitiful in a way that drew people in. At first, I liked her too. My mom, my dad, my brother, we all liked her. It wasn't until much later that I started to notice something felt off. Before Grace arrived, the last piece of chicken wings or drumsticks was always saved for me. After she moved in, if I had one piece, I couldn't have another. Whenever I reached for more, she'd sit there with teary eyes, not saying a word, just looking at me. That look alone was enough to make my mom smack my hand with her chopsticks. "Eat, eat, eat, leave more for Grace," she scolded. She didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what she meant. That poor child, no father, wandering from place to place with her mom, so hard on them. Not long after Grace arrived, she started eyeing my piano lessons. She'd stand nearby, clinging to my mom's sleeve. "Auntie, Fiona is so amazing." My mom clapped her hands and laughed. "Amazing? She's not even top of her class." Grace lowered her eyes and mumbled, "I always wanted to learn, but Mom never," trailing off at just the right point to leave room for imagination. My parents were both soft-hearted. Dad immediately said, "Then why don't you and Fiona learn together? It's not like we can't afford the lessons." Mom nodded in agreement. Grace immediately lit up, hugging my mom. "Thank you, Auntie. Thank you, Uncle." My brother stood to the side and added, "If you start now, you'll definitely be better than Fiona. She's so half-assed about everything." I am not. I was honestly upset to be insulted to my face like that, but no one seemed to notice or care. The four of them laughed together happily. I sat down in front of the piano and, all of a sudden, it felt pointless. Chapter 2. Grace had talent. Her piano skills improved rapidly. The family piano basically became her personal performance stage. Every time she played, the other three clapped like clockwork. Sometimes, when I was the one practicing, my brother Sean would walk by and chime in, "Not as good as Grace." After hearing that one too many times, I slammed the lid and tried to fight him. He easily pinned me down, stared at my tear-streaked face in surprise, then scoffed. "What? Just because I stated a fact? That's why you're crying?" Grace just happened to walk by, wearing the new white dress my mom had bought her, looking like some kind of fairy. Even her voice was soft and sweet. "Fiona tries really hard." Sean snorted and tapped my forehead. "She's just dumb." I really was dumb. Sean and Grace were both smart. Everything came easy to them. They could sight-read new pieces after just a few tries. I had to practice over and over. They'd come home with top awards and get showered in praise. My middle-of-the-road grades weren't impressive, but at least I wasn't dragging behind. The only thing I was ever praised for was playing piano, because it was the one thing Sean couldn't do. But now even that was gone. I wondered whether Grace genuinely liked piano. But she didn't stick with it. Once the compliments died down, the piano became the most overlooked object in the house. And I never got any recognition for my dedication, not even once. Even when they mentioned it, it was only, Grace had real talent in that area. No one cared about the one who had stuck with it for years, day in and day out. Chapter 3. But the moment my hatred for Grace peaked was when I turned 18. Grace and I have birthdays close together. My parents had always promised to throw me a grand coming-of-age party when I turned 18. I had imagined it countless times, me in a princess gown, wearing a sparkling tiara, cutting the cake with Jason. And if Jason happened to confess to me then, it would be perfect. Actually, my parents and brother weren't blind to Grace's little tricks. But to them, the rivalry between kids was just Grace being insecure and desperate for love. They understood, and didn't mind, since there was no one at home who would take my side. I could only turn to Jason. He was my childhood friend, half a year older than me, but he acted like he was 5 or 6 years more mature. I would vent to him about Grace. Sometimes, when I got emotional, I'd curse her out. Jason never swore, but he'd squint his eyes and curse her out with me anyway. Afterward, I'd start to feel guilty. Grace is smarter than me, and prettier too. It's only natural that everyone likes her more. Am I just a bad person? Jason would just laugh and ruffle my hair. Then, before I could get mad at him messing it up, he'd say, "You're not. I like Fiona the most." Actually, before Grace came, my parents used to say that too. But after she arrived, I never heard it again. His words made my cheeks flush red. I whispered, "Really? Really?" When he opened his eyes wide, they reflected a dazzling light. He repeated it sincerely, like he was making some kind of solemn vow. I like Fiona the most. Chapter 4. The party invitation had both mine and Grace's names on it. I didn't want to share it with her. I threw a tantrum over it, but she remained calm and just said we should go along with what my parents wanted. It was rare for all our relatives to gather like this. My parents couldn't realistically organize another event so soon. So, in the end, it was a joint celebration. The dresses were equally beautiful. The cake toppers each had one of us, and the gifts were split right down the middle. Everything that was supposed to belong to me had been divided in half, and I only got one half. Grace and I cut the cake together. Jason sat in the audience, holding up his phone to take pictures of me. His eyes crinkled with a smile, and his camera lens focused only on me. The 5-tiered cake looked like a delicate castle placed on a cart. I grinned at Jason as Grace and I held the knife together, about to make the first slice. Just as we were about to cut down, Grace's hand suddenly pressed harder. Like she lost control, the cart wobbled, and the towering cake tipped in our direction. My brother, who was standing next to her, instantly pulled her back. The cream and fruit spilled all over me, head to toe. My beautiful gauzy dress was now sticky with jam. I stood frozen, and a blueberry that had stuck to my nose dropped onto my skirt. My makeup was ruined. I stood there blankly, still holding the cake knife. The guests fell completely silent. My mom rushed over to smooth things over. "Fiona, how could you be so surreal? It wasn't me. It wasn't me." I looked up and saw Grace, shielded behind my brother. Not a single stain on her. She still looked beautiful. The crystal chandelier above cast light into her eyes. She gave me a small, curved smile, just like when she first came to our house at 14. She did it on purpose. Fury surged up in me. I grabbed a leftover piece of cake from the table and threw it at her. My brother blocked it for her and glared at me. "Fiona, what's wrong with you?" My parents' disapproving eyes joined his. And at that moment, I suddenly realized, calling out Grace would only make things worse for me. My parents, my brother, they had already, unknowingly, chosen the prettier, smarter child. The moment my tears fell, I saw a flicker of panic on my brother's face. 18-year-olds are grown up, but not really. In a burst of childish fury, tears running down my face, I shouted, "I don't want this birthday anymore," then ran away in a mess. To be honest, I was hoping they'd come after me. As I heard footsteps behind me, I was thinking, if they chase after me and coax me, I'll forgive them. But when I finally stopped and turned around, all I saw was the edge of a black coat vanishing around the corner. Silence followed. Still, I waited, but they never came. Chapter 5. Jason found me while I was crying in the bathroom. The makeup and cake on my face had mixed with tears. No matter how hard I wiped, it wouldn't come off. When I saw him walk in, I started crying even harder. Jason took a tissue, dampened it, and gently wiped the cream and jam from my face. Little by little, he looked at me for a moment, then suddenly chuckled. "You look like a little kitten." I sniffled and cried, caught off guard by his teasing. Instinctively, I retorted, "I do not. Definitely not like one." Jason grinned. "All clean now." In the mirror, my bare face reappeared, no longer sticky, though my hair and clothes were still a mess. He reached down and held my hand. His palm was warm. "Come on, Fiona. Where are we going?" "To give you a proper birthday." Jason looked at me, eyes filled with overflowing affection and gentleness. In his gaze, there was no one else but me. A birthday where you're the only star. I melted into his gaze, a little dazed. I thought, at least I still have Jason, my childhood sweetheart for over a decade. The one who stood with me while I cursed the girl we both hated. The one who said he liked me the most. The one who always stood by me. Then, a figure in white stood around the corner. Grace's eyes landed on our intertwined hands. And in that instant, a chill ran down my spine. Jason didn't look at her. He just held my hand and started walking. Jason, Grace called out, her voice soft. Jason didn't stop. You said you wanted to see me. You said we'd go stargazing in the wild together. I came just for that. Jason's hand froze in mine for a moment. When he turned around, his face was full of shock. It was you. It was me. I knew about it too. Jason had an online friend he'd known for 3 years. They got along great. The profile picture was just a black square, and he'd always thought it was a guy. They chatted constantly, like kindred spirits. They even promised that if they ever met in real life, they'd go camping and watch the stars together. When Jason called her bro, she never corrected him. Everything about her made her seem like a fun, like-minded best buddy. Jason had even shown me their chat logs. Not hiding a thing, he'd laughed and said, "What a coincidence." Our hands trembled slightly in each other's grasp. I looked at Jason's side profile. He was staring at Grace. His lips moved slightly. No, please no. I was begging him, silently, over and over again. But the loosening of his grip told me the truth, louder than anything else. He let go. My childhood sweetheart, the Jason who had always stood by me, wavered. Chapter 6. The birthday Jason promised to make up for me never happened. When he left, his back looked uncertain. Grace didn't follow him. She just stood where she was and smiled at me. What was she smiling about? I couldn't understand. Was it satisfaction over Jason's hesitation? Or did she really believe that 3 years of chatting could outweigh over a decade of friendship? So I smiled too. Later, I would finally understand. The only one who had been foolish and naive from beginning to end was me. Chapter 7. That summer was the absolute worst summer of my life. I still texted Jason every day like usual, but he started replying slower than before. Sometimes I'd ask if he was home, or if he wanted to hang out. In the past, no matter how busy he was, he'd always make time for me. But now, all he said was, "Sorry." Sorry for what? I wanted to say it was okay, but my fingers hovered in the chat box, paused again and again, and in the end, I didn't type anything at all. The day I received my university acceptance letter, I didn't show it to my parents. The first person I wanted to tell was him. As I was heading out, Sean called after me. "Fiona, where's your acceptance letter?" I turned around and made a face. "Not showing you." Sean rolled his eyes. "Fine. Don't. It's not like Grace didn't score better than you." I tuned out the rest of his sentence on purpose. Clutching my acceptance letter and a concert ticket, I ran straight to Jason's house, through the yard, down the little path, all the way to his gate. The front door of his house wasn't closed. I ran up, excited, ready to shout his name like I'd done 100 times before. Just one loud call, "Jason," and he'd walk out with that usual smile and answer, "I'm here." Jaw. The name died in my throat before I could say it. It felt like something was strangling me. A soft breeze stirred the wisteria blossoms in the courtyard, petals drifting gently to the ground. Under the flower trellis, the boy lowered his head and placed a tender, reverent kiss on the forehead of the pretty girl in the white dress. A petal landed in her hair. He reached out, brushing a strand away from her cheek. It was such a beautiful moment. If only it hadn't been Grace and Jason, then maybe it would have been perfect. Grace smiled, eyes curved. "Aren't you afraid Fiona will be angry?" Jason hesitated for a moment. "Fiona?" I only ever saw her as a little sister. Just a sister. Something in Grace seemed to click. She giggled softly. The next second, she grabbed Jason by the collar, and the two of them kissed. Jason didn't move. He just let her kiss him, obediently, willingly. Back in elementary school, Jason once gave me a beautiful crystal bracelet. I loved it so much. I never wanted to wear it. I kept it safely tucked away, only taking it out for special occasions. Eventually, it broke. Some careless kid bumped into me, and it hit the ground. The crystals shattered. Fragments scattered everywhere. I threw a huge tantrum and cried for 4 or 5 hours. It wasn't because it was expensive. It was because Jason had given it to me. A gift's value lies in the feelings it represents. But ever since Grace came into my life, that kind of love, once solely mine, was slowly cut in half by my family's favoritism. Only Jason had stayed the same. Whenever I was crying because of my brother, or hurt by my parents' unfairness, whenever I threw a childish fit, I would always think, at least Jason is still here. At least I still have Jason. He'd pat my head and say I was his favorite. Grace never stood a chance. But now, that love, he took it all back, and gave it, every last bit of it, to the one person I hated the most. Chapter 8. I staggered backward. I covered my mouth, but the tears still kept falling. I bumped into someone's chest behind me. I froze, instinctively lowering my head, ready to run away, when a clear, sharp voice rang out by my ear. Well, if it isn't my blind little nephew and that pretentious coquette *tch. Kissing in public like it's some fairy tale. His biting comments stopped me cold. I instinctively looked up, only to crash right into Leonardo's sea-like eyes. His tone was mocking, but his face was expressionless. When he saw my face clearly, he paused for a moment, then pulled a tissue from his pocket and handed it to me. "Why are you crying?" he asked in a flat voice. What could I say? That the person I liked had been stolen, by a repeat offender. No less? Even saying it out loud felt pathetic. "It's nothing." My voice was nasal as I answered, lowering my head again, trying to leave. "Were you here to give Jason the tickets?" The acceptance letter and concert ticket in my hand had already been wrinkled from how tightly I was gripping them. I didn't reply. "Looks like he won't need them anymore." Leonardo held out his hand. "I'll take them." Leonardo was Jason's younger uncle, just 3 or 4 years older than him. He had been in a car accident when he was young, leaving his legs in poor condition. He'd come here to recover for a while. He always looked gloomy, spending his days on the second-floor balcony staring into the distance, his frown tight enough to crush a fly. I was never good at reading the room as a kid. Whenever Jason wasn't around, I'd go find Leonardo to play, even accidentally snipping off 2 of his potted plants. I thought he'd scold me, but he didn't. Leonardo was like the melancholic beauty from a storybook. Even his sullen face couldn't hide how good-looking he was. He called me over, then gave my cheeks a harsh pinch, twice. I asked, "Aren't you going to scold me?" He suddenly smiled, like fresh snow melting under the sun. "If I scare you off, who's gonna keep me company?" I was dazzled by his beauty and swore to be a good friend to him too. But later, we had a huge fight, and things slowly grew distant. It didn't matter who got the ticket anymore. I thought. "Here." I handed it to him. Leonardo took it, as if he was about to say something, but I bowed my head and ran off before he could. Chapter 9. I waited for Jason to come and tell me he was with Grace now. But even by the next day, when I woke up with puffy eyes, there wasn't a single message from him. When I went downstairs, Sean saw my swollen eyes and laughed loudly. I ignored him and headed straight to the fridge for an ice pack. Grace was in the kitchen. The moment she saw me, she smiled with her eyes. I rolled mine and went for the ice. I had to go on stage in a few days, had to get the swelling down quickly. Then someone knocked on the door. I put down the ice and went to open it. The boy standing there was still as gentle and bright as a spring breeze. When he saw me, he smiled slightly. "Fiona." My nose tingled. I couldn't say anything. Jason tilted his head. "What's wrong? Your eyes are suddenly swollen. Should I get you an ice mask?" I shook my head, biting the inside of my cheek. It took me a while to finally speak. "Jason, is there anything you want to say to me?" Jason blinked. "Something to say? Oh, did your acceptance letter come yesterday?" I forgot to ask. I said nothing. He looked a little puzzled and reached out, trying to pat my head, but his hand caught only air. I had stepped away. I refused to meet his eyes again. I bit down hard on my lip. When I finally let go, my mouth was filled with the taste of iron. I forced down the tremble in my voice. "Jason, let's not be friends anymore. He hadn't said anything yet when Grace stepped out of the room behind him. I didn't want her to see me cry. I lowered my head and fled again. The door closed behind me. I buried my face in the covers, and the tears came flooding back. Chapter 10. Jason thought I was just being petty with him, that I was mad because he had turned down my invitation. But that wasn't it. I was just heartbroken that he wouldn't tell the truth. I guess this was the first time I ever really saw my childhood sweetheart clearly. Chapter 11. The weather wasn't great on the day of the concert. When I left the house, only Grace was home. She was sitting in the living room, scrolling through her phone when she saw me come downstairs in my dress. She smiled. I ignored her and went to open the door, but then she spoke. "This is what, your how many th concert now?" My hand froze on the doorknob. A performance with no one bringing you flowers must feel pretty miserable when the curtain comes down. Huh? There was a trace of laughter in Grace's voice, soft, sweet, but cold, so very cold. "Unless you beg me, maybe? Fiona, if you beg me, I might come cheer you on." My hand trembled slightly. You see, she knew. She knew exactly what would hurt. "Grace, does taking things from others really make you happy?" "It does," she said plainly, folding her arms, standing there with calm arrogance. "There's just something satisfying about stealing what others treasure, watching them suffer, helpless and in pain. It makes me happy, Fiona," she added, smiling faintly. "I'm going to take everything from you." My tears were on the verge of falling. I bit the inside of my cheek hard enough to stop them. I couldn't let my makeup smear. "Then go ahead and take it," I said softly. There was a flicker of surprise on her face. I turned around and forced a smile. If something can be taken that easily, then maybe it wasn't worth much to begin with. "Grace, you only take from others because you have nothing of your own. That's pathetic. If you love stealing so much, then I'll just give it to you. I don't care anymore." Chapter 12. I had a stubborn mouth but a soft heart. Even if I lost, I still had to throw a jab at Grace. I won with words, but inside, I was all over the place. I almost hit the wrong note during my solo, but thankfully made it through safely. After the final bow, the rain still hadn't stopped. The families of my friends had all come with bouquets, each of them surrounded by warm circles of love and praise. I didn't have that. Back when Ms. Robin was still around, she'd bring me a little bouquet too, but she had too many students to care for just me. She had something else today, so she wasn't here either. I slipped through the crowd, quietly heading toward the dressing room to get my bag. A concert with no flowers. I was used to it by now. Just like all the other times, walking alone past those wrapped in affection. Heading home by myself. I had to change out of my clothes before the others got back. Otherwise, Sean might start teasing me again. "A dress that pretty, what a waste on you. Where are you going?" Someone grabbed my wrist. Warmth spread from my wrist up my arm. The voice came with a teasing lilt. Did the little princess forget her flowers? There was only one person in the world who called me that. When I was little, I loved wearing princess dresses, bright and spoiled. Everyone in the family doted on me. Only Leonardo would half smile and call me little princess, mocking me for being too soft. Jason didn't understand. He said, "Then I'm the prince, because princes and princesses belong together. And what are you, then?" I had once asked, standing beside Leonardo's wheelchair, turning it all into make-believe. Leonardo gave his usual half-smile, then pinched my cheeks. "Since the prince role's taken, I'll be the knight. Knights protect princesses," I said. "Of course." Leonardo's smile deepened. "A knight always stands on the princess's side." But later, we had a huge fight. Leonardo was away at school most of the time, and we grew distant. Still, every time he came back, he brought me little gifts, always exactly what I liked. The fight was because of Grace. Back then, she had just moved in, not fully steeped in her coquette routine yet, still soft-spoken, always clinging to the hem of my dress. I liked her a lot and took her everywhere with me. Leonardo didn't like her. He didn't even bother hiding it in front of me. Told me to be careful. Called her fake. Manipulative. His words were harsh, but I had been completely fooled by Grace, believing she was just an innocent, pitiful girl. I was furious with Leonardo for saying such things. He ground his teeth in frustration, his face turning cold, just like when we first met. You trust her, not me? I hesitated for 2 seconds. In the end, I chose the soft, sweet-smelling girl. You can't be so harsh. Perfect, Leonardo had said with a smirk like a snake flicking its tongue. Fiona, you'll suffer for it later. She'll eat you alive. And he was right. Chapter 13. Leonardo stood there holding the flowers in one hand. He was tall now, his figure fully grown, dressed in a perfectly tailored suit. He looked both noble and distant. He loosened his grip and handed the bouquet to me. It filled my arms completely, extravagant and expensive. It was the first time I'd ever received flowers that were meant for me alone. Honestly, I hadn't even hoped that Leonardo would show up. The very first time I performed at a concert, it had also been a rainy day. I wore a beautiful dress, prepared my best piece, and imagined myself taking a bow after thunderous applause. I imagined my parents would be there with flowers, hugging me and saying, "Fiona, that was amazing." And I'd tell them, "See? I've really been working hard at piano. Fiona's been trying so hard." So, Mom, Dad, could you stop looking only at Grace? Is that too much to ask? That day, the rain poured endlessly, so long that even the most enthusiastic parents had already left. So long the music hall had nearly emptied out. So long I stood by the entrance, watching the rain fall, watching the sky darken. So long that my stomach began to rumble from hunger. Only then did Dad finally arrive, looking apologetic. He said, "Sorry, Fiona. Grace suddenly had a fever. We had to rush her to the hospital. I guess we forgot about you." I wanted to say I played really well today. And MS. Robin praised me. I wanted to say some parents even pointed at me and said I was a standout. I wanted to say, "Dad, you forgot the flowers I asked you to bring, right? Also, the ticket was expensive." MS. Robin saved you a prime family seat. It would have saved a lot of money. Dad, fevers don't need 3 people at the hospital. And I really wanted for you to come see how beautiful and accomplished your daughter Fiona is. But I didn't say anything. I just stood there, hands cold and stiff, forcing a smile. "It's okay, Dad." Chapter 14. Tears fell onto the flowers. I always managed to look my worst right in front of Leonardo. His expression softened slightly. He pulled out a tissue again. My hands were full, so he wiped my tears for me. He chuckled. "What brand of makeup is that? Waterproof? Huh, I'll buy you a full set next time." His joke threw me off. For a moment, I thought my makeup had smudged and panicked. I shoved the bouquet back into his arms. "I need to fix my face." "You don't." Leonardo's fingertips brushed the corner of my eye. "Warm and light. You look beautiful, little princess." I was a little embarrassed. He, on the other hand, looked completely serious. I stared at him, dazed. After a while, I finally opened my mouth and called his name. "Leonardo." You were right. I was wrong. Grace. I know." Leonardo cut me off. His tone was casual, not at all like what I'd imagined. He didn't say, "See? I told you so and you didn't believe me." He looked into my eyes. His gaze was deep, almost unreadable. "Fiona, want to see them regret it?" Chapter 15. I didn't quite react in time, and Leonardo didn't push the topic further. He just took me out for an amazing dinner, then walked me home after dark. Our footsteps startled 2 people in the courtyard. Our conversation cut off. I reached to flip on the courtyard lights. The moment they came on, I saw Jason, who had just been holding Grace's hand, quickly pull away. "Fiona? Uncle Leo?" Grace's face was something. I lifted the bouquet and gave it a little flaunt, grinning wide. "Uncle Leo came to my concert today." "Grace, look! Aren't the flowers beautiful?" Her expression turned a little dark. She stared at the flowers like she wanted to rip them apart. Seeing her upset made me happy. "You had a concert today?" Jason looked stunned. He stepped forward. "Fiona, why didn't you tell me?" "Why should I tell you?" I tilted my head, genuinely confused. Jason's throat tightened. After a moment, he said, "We're friends, aren't we?" "You forgot?" I lowered my eyes, smiled faintly, and held my bouquet close. Then let me say it again, Jason, we're not friends anymore. Chapter 16. After my shower. My phone on the table kept buzzing nonstop. There were messages from 2 people. I opened Leonardo's chat first. He had only sent a screenshot. Grace had sent him a friend request. Request message. Uncle, I'm Fiona's cousin. Thank you for today. Leonardo had rejected it. I rubbed my wet hair with a towel and replied with a meme. Then I opened Jason's messages. Jason, Fiona, are you mad? Remember that park you mentioned before? I'm free tomorrow. Want to go? Sorry. Things have been a bit hectic lately. I haven't had time for you. I pursed my lips and began typing on my phone. Me, Jason. If you could only choose between me and Grace, who would you pick? I saw the typing bubble pop up, then disappear, then pop up again, but the answer never came. I waited patiently. Finally, just as my hair was almost dry, his reply came through. Jason, Fiona, maybe Grace isn't as bad as you think. Why can't you two just get along? Get along? I curled my lips into a cold, bitter smile. I was the first one who tried to get along with her. She was the one who pushed me out and stole the people I loved. Who exactly was the one who couldn't get along? Me. I understand. Then I tapped his profile picture, and with one clean, decisive move, delete. Then go get along with her. Jason. Chapter 17. In the final days before summer break ended, Jason came looking for me. He stood downstairs, calling my name. I pretended not to hear. Sean asked if we had fought. I pretended I didn't hear that either. I treated them all like air. All I wanted was for summer to end quickly, so I could start my new life. At last, the day came. My parents and brother came to see us off at the station. Grace and I were going to the same city. Jason came too. When he saw me, his eyes lit up like they always did, and he tried to talk to me. I turned my head and looked down at my phone instead. The screen happened to be on my chat with Leonardo. Me. I'm about to board the train. Leonardo. Okay. Text me when you're close. I'll come pick you up. Grace and I had seats next to each other. When we boarded, Mom grabbed my hand, eyes already brimming with tears. Make sure you call home often. Grace smiled sweetly. Of course. Dragging my suitcase. I said nothing. Mom turned to me. Fiona. You. I know. I cut her off. I didn't care what she was going to say. All my mind was focused on my new life. She froze a little, but I had already pulled my suitcase aboard, and I didn't see her standing there, hand gripping Dad's tightly, eyes lingering on my back for a long, long time. Chapter 18. College life was good. There was no annoying Grace, no biased family, and no childhood sweetheart who kept one foot in each bowl. There were only my roommates who shouted things like, Fiona, please grab lunch for me. I'm begging you. Fiona, you look so pretty today. Fiona, what do you want to eat? Let's go together. And Leonardo, who took me out every weekend. I always forgot to call my parents. Every 10 days or so, they'd call me instead. But the conversations never lasted long, just a few words before I rushed off to hang out with my roommates or Leonardo. Right after I hung up on my mom one day, Leonardo called. There's something urgent at work today. I'll have to break our plans, sorry. I felt a bit disappointed. Oh, okay. He chuckled lightly on the other end. How about I send someone else to keep you company instead? My mom's in town for a few days and I'm totally tied up. Fiona, would you mind taking her out? Really? I hesitated, a little shy, but I'm kind of dressed, flashy today. No worries. My mom loves when girls dress flashy. She always wanted a daughter, one she could dress up like a princess. Well, okay. Leonardo was so good to me, I wanted to take care of his mom just as well. Where is she? Should I go pick her up? She's probably already there. A bright red Panamera pulled up at the school gate. A woman in sunglasses stepped out. The moment she saw me, her eyes lit up like fireworks. She strode toward me. Fiona? I greeted her politely. Hello, Auntie. She instantly beamed and took my hand. What a beautiful girl. Come on, let's go shopping. From Leonardo's phone came his voice. Mom. Fiona has to go back to school tonight. Don't take her too far. Yeah, got it. I finally understood what Leonardo meant by dressing up like a princess. Calliope dragged me through the entire mall, making me try on loads of beautiful outfits. With a wave of her hand, she bought everything. She even picked out some matching outfits. She called them sister sets. But honestly, we looked more like mother and daughter. Her phone kept snapping pictures the whole time. I was starting to feel embarrassed. Then she took me to a fancy Western restaurant, ordered a whole feast, and even got me a Ferris wheel-shaped ice cream dessert. Afterward, she insisted on driving me back to campus. I sat in the passenger seat and texted Leonardo. Me, your mom is so sweet. Leonardo, she took so many photos. Why don't you post some of them? I blinked. Me, can I? Leonardo, of course. He sent over a photo of me and his mom wearing our matching outfits, both making peace signs. We looked like we came out of the same mold. Leonardo, this one's really good. I thought about it for a bit, then posted a picture from today with a short caption. Likes and comments started flooding in. Roommate, so pretty. Little goddess, can I add you on WeChat? MS, Robin, such a classy mom. Two gorgeous ladies. I replied to Robin. Me, thanks. MS, Robin, that's my friend's beautiful mom. A while later, my phone rang. It was Mom. Hello? Fiona, who were you with today? My friend's mom. I answered honestly. There was a pause on the other end. Then her tone changed, odd and a little sour. You can't spare 2 minutes to talk to your own mother, but you spent the whole day out with someone else's? Only then did I realize she had seen MS. Robin's comment. The call volume wasn't low. I gave Calliope an apologetic smile, just about to explain, but she spoke up first. Happily. Fiona, those clothes I bought you, wash them, okay? We'll wear our matching ones next time we go out. We'll look adorable. I froze. I opened my mouth to say something, but the call had already been hung up. The beeping tone echoed in my ears. Calliope looked puzzled. What? Did I say something wrong? Exactly like Leonardo. I pressed my lips together and looked down, smiling softly. No, not at all. Chapter 19. That night, when I got back, my dad sent me a message. He asked what was wrong. He said every time my mom mentioned me, she'd start crying. I replied, I don't know. After a while, he messaged again. Call your mom more often while you're at school. She keeps thinking about you. When are you coming home for break? I didn't reply. I tossed my phone aside and kept gaming with my roommate, until the phone rang 3 or 4 times. I picked up. It was Sean. Fiona, I bought tickets for National Day. Let's go on a family trip together. All right? No. I didn't even look away from the screen. Sean sounded a little pissed. You've gone completely wild since you started college. When we care about you, it's like you don't even hear it. Is it really that hard for your parents to see you once? I muted the phone. Half an hour later, I checked. He still hadn't hung up. I said a quick hello, and Sean immediately started up again. What's your deal? I already have plans. I replied quietly. I was going to the beach with my roommate. Sean tried to say something else, but I hung up in one click. Suddenly, I felt free and refreshed. I should have let it go a long time ago. Anyone who can be stolen away isn't worth caring about. Chapter 20. The days Aunt Calliope was here were nothing but joy. When she left, I was reluctant to see her go. She patted my head and nearly kissed me. Sweetheart, I'll come see you again next month. Leonardo gave a helpless reminder. You called her the wrong thing. Mom. Aunt Calliope pulled me into a hug. I don't care. Fiona's so adorable. I might as well just adopt her. I hugged her back. I like you too, Auntie. Leonardo pinched my cheek like he wanted to say something, but didn't. When he was driving me back to school, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. My mom was seriously upset with me. Even after Dad and my brother talked to her, she still wasn't satisfied, so now she was messaging me herself. I set her messages to do not disturb. The latest one said, Grace is so much more thoughtful than you. I paused for a moment. Then I finally replied, then let Grace be your daughter. A sudden ringtone cut through my thoughts. Leonardo glanced at the phone but didn't take his hands off the wheel. Fiona, can you answer that for me? It was a number with no contact name, but it looked familiar. Put it on speaker. I did as he said, bringing the phone closer. As soon as the call connected, a familiar female voice slurred through, full of drunken sweetness and a long, drawn-out ending. Uncle Leo. Her tone made my scalp tingle. Grace's voice was soft and syrupy, half like she was whining, half like she was moaning. Leonardo curled his lips into a smirk, glanced at me from the side, and said nothing. I'm drunk. Can you come pick me up? I don't know anyone here. I rolled my eyes. What? Are her roommates just decoration? Uncle. Leonardo cleared his throat and asked her, where are you? Grace gave him an address. Uncle Leo. Come quick. They keep making me drink. I hit the end call button. Leonardo turned on the GPS and drove toward the bar she mentioned. I crossed my arms and mocked her voice. Uncle. Leonardo didn't answer, just let out a low chuckle. Even the glance from the corner of his eye was seductive. We pulled up outside the bar. Leonardo used his phone to call me, and once I picked up, he didn't hang up. He even turned on the voice recorder. Then he opened the door. I got out. Leonardo took off his jacket and draped it over me. I'll come back to get you in a bit. I said nothing, just looked at him. Drunken words are honest words. Fiona, don't you want to hear some real truth? Chapter 21. Leonardo went to pick up Grace. The bar was noisy and full of chatter. Amid the chaos, I heard Grace screaming. Then Leonardo asked her if she wanted another drink. Grace said yes. 10 minutes later, the background noise faded a bit. The voices became clearer. Grace called out, Uncle, can you take me to a hotel? I don't want to go back to campus. Leonardo didn't reply. She continued, they all hate me. Uncle, no one likes me. Her voice started to tremble, on the verge of tears. What about Jason? Leonardo asked calmly. Isn't he your boyfriend? He's not. He's not. He only likes Fiona. Even when we're together, he's still thinking about her. Everyone likes Fiona. Everyone likes Fiona. She said it again. And why is that? She's not smarter than me, not prettier than me, and she's stupid. So why does everyone like her? You're jealous of her, Leonardo said with certainty. Of course I am. Grace laughed, her voice tinged with satisfaction. Not just jealous. I want to take everything from her. I want to steal everyone who likes her. I want to watch her cry, watch her beg me, watch her never smile again. Her parents, her brother, Jason, they're all idiots. She plays this fragile little damsel act, sheds a few tears, and all those brainless fools go running around her like she's some kind of saint. Her own parents don't care about their actual child, but go out of their way to love an outsider. You couldn't find a more pathetic bunch in this world, and yet they all gather around her like moths to a flame. Grace laughed, and her voice slowly steadied. Leonardo. Her voice had lost that intentionally sweet tone. To drag a shining sun down into the mud. You've thought about it too, haven't you? There was a brief silence on the other end. Leonardo's answer was calm and honest. Of course. My heart jumped to my throat. But I think the sun belongs in the sky. As for me, I just want her to shine forever. Chapter 22. When Leonardo came to pick me up, the car was already empty. I pulled his jacket a little tighter around me, opened the passenger door, and got in. Leonardo didn't say anything. The car was quiet, almost peaceful. When we got to the front gate of my school, he dropped me off and, like always, reminded me, text me when you get to your dorm. Leonardo. I clenched my hands together. When the holiday comes, will you go home with me? He looked at me. His gaze was deep, like the ocean. After a moment, he smiled. All right. Chapter 23. My parents and older brother still sent me messages from time to time. I set all their messages to do not disturb and ignored them completely. If they called, I'd answer with a few perfunctory lines. Nothing more. Every time they started to lecture me, I would pull Grace into it, let her come then. Fiona, you're the one who's really our daughter. I couldn't even force a smile. So they did know. Then why did they still favor Grace? I'm your mother. I gave a half-hearted response and hung up the phone. By the end of the year, I went back home. My parents came to the train station expecting to pick up Grace and me, but only Leonardo and I showed up. This is Jason's uncle, I said with a light smile. He's been really taking care of me. My parents exchanged a glance. Thank you for looking after Fiona. She's still immature. No, she's very mature. Leonardo cut him off. His tone gentle, his smile calm. My mom's expression stiffened. She didn't say anything else. I brushed past them. I'm heading home first. My parents thought I came back to reconcile with them, but they were wrong. I was out almost every day, barely spending time at home. Sometimes I went out with old classmates, sometimes with Leonardo. At home, I just stayed shut in my room, barely speaking to them. After a few days of this lukewarm routine, the first to crack was Jason. I knew he broke up with Grace not long after getting together. Later, he tried to add me back, but I never accepted. One day, as I was leaving the house, I saw Jason standing in the yard. I paused. A habit formed over a decade made me instinctively want to greet him, but right at the edge of speaking, I swallowed the words back down. Jason met my eyes. His gaze flickered. He called out, "Fiona." His voice was just like before, low and gentle. I looked away and walked straight past him, but he stepped in front of me. Jason smiled faintly. "Fiona, the flowers are blooming in the south of the city. Want to go see them together?" That was his old trick. When he upset me as a kid, he'd knock on my door and say, "Hey, such and such is happening. Want to come see it?" Back then, I was easy to coax. Even when I got mad, it wouldn't last long. As long as he gave me a way down, I'd take it. But things were different now. I already have plans. Then, how about tomorrow? I don't. The person standing behind him answered for me. Jason turned around. When he saw who it was, his face went pale. Leonardo raised an eyebrow. "Why didn't you greet me?" Jason didn't say anything. He turned back to me, face drained of color. "Fiona, you two are together?" I looked at Leonardo. Leonardo looked back at me, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. Then I turned back to Jason. "Isn't it obvious? Now that you know, stay away from me. Stop hanging around and being a nuisance." Something flickered in Jason's eyes, maybe resentment. He opened his mouth, but all he did was sigh. "I'll wait for you." "Fiona, wait for what? For me to go blind again and run back into your arms?" I rolled my eyes. "Don't flatter yourself, Jason." Not realizing who you really were earlier, that's the one thing I regret most in this life. Chapter 24. Maybe they finally realized my attitude wasn't right. My parents started to change theirs too. They began trying to get close to me, making a conscious effort. They even asked me to bring Leonardo home for dinner, saying they wanted to thank him for looking after me while I was away. They really went all out. That evening, when we came back, the table was covered in dishes. Leonardo sat down beside me. My dad asked, "Young man, what's your name?" "Leonardo." Leonardo gave his name and then fell silent. My dad's face shifted slightly, but he didn't press further. My mom, on the other hand, acted like she was doing a background check, asking Leonardo all kinds of questions. Leonardo answered each one calmly. "Fiona's very independent. She can handle a lot on her own." My mom chuckled. "That's true." Then she reached out with her chopsticks to put some food into my bowl, as if trying to show how close we were. But the chopsticks were stopped halfway. Leonardo smiled politely. "Auntie, Fiona's allergic to shrimp." My mom froze for a second, then laughed awkwardly. I got too excited and forgot. She picked up another dish, only to be blocked again. "Auntie, Fiona doesn't like mushrooms either." My mom was clearly uncomfortable now. Leonardo, who usually carried himself with the grace and polish of someone who'd spent years in business, was now sharp, unyielding. "Auntie, you don't seem to know Fiona very well. Kids grow up, their tastes change." My mom tried to smooth things over. "Do they?" Leonardo smiled. "Funny, because from what I've seen, you know your other daughter quite well." "Oh, she's not my daughter. She's Fiona's cousin." "Is that so?" "Strange, because to me, she seems more like your daughter." What kind of parents don't know a thing about their own child? but care so much for an outsider? My dad suddenly slammed his hand on the table. Dishes clattering. Leonardo didn't even flinch. Get out, uncle. Why are you angry? Leonardo asked, looking innocent. I sat next to him, watching his profile, and suddenly smiled. My parents grew even angrier. My dad slammed the table again. Fiona, what is this supposed to mean? I ignored them and reached for Leonardo's hand. Let's go. They can't handle the truth. Leonardo let me pull him away. Sean stepped forward, trying to stop me, but Leonardo moved in front of me protectively. My mom yelled my name in fury. Fiona, what are you trying to do? Are you deliberately disrespecting your mother? You're not to see this man again. Ever since you came back, you've been going out every day and barely said a word to us. Spending all your time with him, were you like this in college too? Never studying, always messing around. When will you finally stop making me worry? He even dared to. To what? I asked. Dad hesitated for a moment, then said, he's not a good person. It was him. No wonder I found that name familiar. He just stole one of your father's clients last month. Clever little tricks for someone so young. I let out a short laugh. So that's what this is about. I don't study hard. I mess around. Did Grace tell you that? I turned toward Grace, who was standing there, with a slight smile tugging at her lips. Mom said, don't look at her like that. Grace is only trying to help you. Oh, she's trying to help me? I scoffed, then strode straight over to Grace. Before anyone could stop me, I raised my hand and slapped her hard across the face. Grace's cheek turned red and swollen almost instantly. Fiona, you say he's rude, that he talks back to you, but it's only because what he said hit where it hurt. You really don't know my preferences. You really don't care. You really do treat an outsider better than your own daughter. Tell me, which part of what he said was wrong? My mother's expression changed. She raised her hand, as if she was about to slap me. I didn't flinch. I stood still, staring right at her, and called out, Mom, do you really not know? Do you really not know Grace faked being sick, just to stop you from going to my piano recital? Do you really not know how long I waited there that night? How much I looked forward to seeing you? Do you really not know she doesn't even care about piano? That all she ever wanted was to take away your attention? Do you really not realize? My voice started to tremble, tears lacing the edge of my words. I tore off the veil of pretense that had always covered us, the polite lies, the unspoken favoritism, the unfairness they knew deep down but pretended not to see. All of it, laid bare, even if that truth would become a blade that cut our relationship to pieces. I didn't care anymore. Do you love Grace more than me? My mother's words were caught in her throat. She clearly hadn't expected me to be this direct. Her lips trembled as she spoke, but I didn't catch the words. Finally, she said, it's because she's a guest. So because she's a guest, you favor her? I sneered. Dad, Mom, blood is something you can't change. I'll still think of you as my parents. I'll still take care of you when you're old. But that's all. From now on, if you're looking for love, for warmth, go find it in Grace. But there's one more thing I want you to hear. I pulled out my phone and tapped on the recording. Grace's voice rang out crystal clear in the living room. She mocked my parents and my brother, called them fools, laughed at how a few fake tears made them turn their backs on their own daughter, mocked how blind they were, how easily she had torn apart our relationship. Midway through the recording, my mom's eyes turned red. Then she grabbed Grace by the hair. She screamed like a madwoman, ready to strike her. You ungrateful snake. How could you? I just stood there coldly, watching the whole farce unfold. My father's shoulders collapsed as if something inside him broke. He tried to call my name. Fiona. I didn't respond. I turned toward the door. Sean's eyes were red. He tried to grab my hand, but I shook him off and reached for Leonardo's instead. Someone called after me. Fiona. Mom was wrong. It was my fault. I didn't look back. I kept walking until there was no one around. Leonardo held my hand, but he wasn't smiling. He asked, You don't regret this? I answered, No. It's not that I didn't know how to play the game. I knew very well, if I acted like Grace, quiet and obedient, pretending to be pitiful, Pretending to be vulnerable, I could win their sympathy too. But to swallow your pride, to play a role, just to compete for someone else's affection, what you get in the end isn't love. It's quicksand, pulling you deeper the more you fight. Grace thought she won, but all she did was bury herself deeper in the mud. In this life, there are many things worth fighting for, but love should never be one of them. Extra chapter. Chapter 1. While shopping for groceries, Fiona's mother ran into a woman walking with a child. The little girl blinked up at her mother and chirped sweetly, "Mom, do you want me to help carry the groceries?" The woman said no and squatted down to pat her daughter on the head, praising her for being such a good girl. The girl seriously wiped the sweat from her mother's face with her sleeve and gave her a kiss. Watching them, Fiona's mother was suddenly reminded of young Fiona. Back then, she wore little pigtails and followed behind her just the same, chirping mommy with that same crisp voice. After coming back from the market, she would drag a stool over and sit beside her, helping wash vegetables. Fiona's mother stood there in a daze for a long time, until someone accidentally bumped into her and knocked the groceries from her hands. The passerby quickly apologized, but she didn't seem to hear. Chapter 2. It wasn't until evening that Fiona's father came home. Their marriage had been hanging by a thread for a while. They were used to blaming each other, blaming one another for not treating Fiona properly, never once reflecting on themselves. He reeked of alcohol, and faintly, of perfume. Fiona's mother didn't argue. She just stared at him blankly for a while and said, "I want to go see Fiona." He didn't answer, just lit a cigarette. After a long pause, he finally said, "She might not be happy to see you, but I miss her." Silence again. Then, as if something inside her shattered, Fiona's mother suddenly screamed, "She's my daughter. Fiona is my daughter." He exhaled a puff of smoke. "Yeah, your daughter. You broke her heart for the sake of a backstabbing brat. And now she doesn't even acknowledge you as her mother." Fiona's mother went blank for a while. Just when he thought she was done, she suddenly lunged at him, scratching and hitting. "And you didn't do anything wrong? You never neglected her? You weren't fooled by that backstabber too? You think I didn't know? You think I didn't know you were secretly keeping a mistress? Ning Zhou, you didn't just fail your daughter, you failed me too." He was caught off guard. Her nails scratched a bloody mark across his face. She didn't let go, clawing at his hair, hitting his head. He finally snapped. And the couple, married for decades, ended up physically fighting each other. When the chaos ended, both were injured. He stood up coldly and said, "Let's get a divorce." Chapter 3. Fiona's father didn't not love her. When she was a tiny ball of a child, he used to cuddle her and rub his stubble against her cheeks, making her giggle. At first, he only pitied Grace, but over time, things changed. Fiona's mother favored Grace. Sean always praised Grace. Grace seemed smarter, prettier, better at playing vulnerable, and slowly, he, without realizing it, started favoring Grace too. Later, he tried to make up for it, but more than 10 years of distance left him with no idea where to even begin. He used a business trip as an excuse to see Fiona. She arrived in a rush, distracted throughout dinner, barely listened to anything he said. The whole meal, he was the only one talking. At the next table, a father was lifting his daughter up on his shoulders, spinning her in the air. The girl burst into giggles. When Fiona came back from the restroom and saw him watching, she only gave a faint smile. By the time he went to the cashier, he found out Fiona had already paid. She was waiting downstairs. When she saw him, her smile lightened a little. He opened his mouth awkwardly. "Fiona, didn't I say this meal's on me? Why'd you pay?" Her voice was polite, distant, nothing like the soft sweetness of her childhood. "No need. I've got it. If you're planning to visit next time, let me know in advance so I can prepare. I was just on a trip, thought I'd stop by." "No need." She smiled. "I'm doing just fine." His throat tightened. "Do you need money? Anything you want? I can buy it for you." Fiona frowned slightly, clearly a bit impatient. "I remember you used to like." He froze, couldn't finish the sentence. Fiona gave a small laugh, her tone calm. "I already told you, Dad. There are some things you simply can't make up for. When I was little, I wanted a bouquet of flowers from you after my recital. When I was older, I wanted you to stand by me when everyone pointed fingers at me. But now, I don't need anything anymore. Because she didn't care anymore. She wasn't that little girl who used to run behind her father whenever something went wrong. And her father was no longer her safe haven. Chapter 4. Fiona's mother went to her husband's company and caused a scene. She screamed about him having a mistress, throwing herself on the floor like a soap opera character. They both lost face completely. It took everything Fiona's father had to drag her out of there. Then she went after Grace, claimed Grace owed them money, said it was time to pay them back now that she was grown. Raising a child wasn't cheap. The last 10 years alone had cost plenty. Fiona's mother didn't need the money. She just wanted to make the backstabbing brat suffer. If Grace didn't pay, she'd sue her. After both fights, she stared at the photos Fiona had just posted online, then immediately booked a ticket, rushing off to stage an accidental encounter. If Fiona had blamed her, it would have been easier. If Fiona had shouted, if she had cried, if she had hated her, maybe she wouldn't have gone this crazy. But Fiona didn't hate her. She just treated her coldly, politely, like a stranger. She still called her mom. She still answered her calls and replied to messages. But it was distant, emotionless, like an employee replying to a boss, cordial but void of warmth. And then she'd turn around and take intimate photos wearing matching outfits, with another woman, as if they were the real mother and daughter. When Fiona's mother arrived, Fiona and Calliope were sunbathing. The two of them lay side by side, chatting and laughing without a care in the world. She stood there for a long time, watching. In her head, she played through dozens of excuses. Maybe she'd say a friend invited her here. Maybe she'd say it was a spontaneous trip. Maybe she'd claim she saw an ad saying this was a nice place. But none of it sounded right. The truth? The truth was, she just wanted to see her. Ma'am? A voice behind her startled her. She turned and saw the one person she hated most. Like a snake, cold, cunning, and unwilling to let go once he sank his teeth in. Leonardo stood there holding 2 cold drinks, a slight smile on his lips. Fiona's mother hated him, but even she couldn't deny, he treated Fiona well, painfully, obviously well. She stood frozen, waiting for the younger man to say something, to maybe lead her to her daughter. Leonardo just smiled and asked if she was thirsty. He had no intention of taking her to Fiona. I just wanted to come see her, she blurted out. Leonardo raised an eyebrow. His tone remained polite, but his words cut sharp. Vacations are meant to be relaxing. Some things, especially the self-inflicted ones, are best avoided. Her face flushed with anger. She opened her mouth to curse him, but Leonardo just smiled again. After pretending to be blind for so many years, now you regret it because the truth's come out? For your own daughter to grow up cheerful after all that unfair treatment, that's already something close to a miracle. Auntie, don't you realize, no matter what you do now, to her, it's just another wound? She had no reply. She knew Leonardo was speaking on Fiona's behalf. She was angry at Grace's manipulation, at Sean's blindness, at her husband's favoritism, but most of all, she was angry at herself. She knew Fiona didn't want to be disturbed. She meant every word she said that day, but she couldn't let go. That was her daughter, the daughter she carried for 10 months. They were supposed to be the closest people in the world. Chapter 5. Fiona's mother ended up leaving. She met Fiona at the hotel. Fiona greeted her politely. She told Fiona she'd be heading back soon. Then she asked, could she give her a hug? Fiona looked slightly uncomfortable. A sharp ache stabbed through her heart. After a long pause, she lowered her hand. Well, have fun then. Fiona nodded. The frustration in Fiona's mother had nowhere to go, so she kept looking for others to blame, kept lashing out. At her husband, at Grace, at Sean. The household turned chaotic. Grace became like a rat in the street, hiding from everyone. And still, every day, Fiona's mother checked Fiona's updates with Leonardo. She saw her winning awards, attending events, traveling with friends. Fiona was always smiling in the photos. Bright, radiant, unapologetically happy. So beautiful. Her daughter. Chapter 6. Fiona was scheduled to perform in another recital, with a solo piece this time. The tickets weren't cheap. Fiona's mother bought 3. Fiona's father had an important meeting that day, but he canceled it. For once, their crumbling family looked presentable. While they were seated, they happened to run into Fiona's piano teacher, Ms. Robin wore an elegant silk scarf around her neck. Fiona's mother called out to her. She paused, puzzled. "You are?" "I'm Fiona's mother, Ms. Robin understood immediately, gave the three of them a quick glance, and smiled politely. "You look unfamiliar, my apologies." It wasn't surprising. Fiona's mother had never been involved in her piano education, only ever paid the fees. Ms. Robin exchanged a few words with someone nearby, then sat down close to them. Fiona's mother tried to start a conversation about Fiona. Ms. Robin smiled lightly. "Fiona's a wonderful child, always so thoughtful. This scarf, she brought it back for me while traveling abroad." Fiona's mother fell silent. She worked really hard at the piano, always the last to leave the practice hall, and she progressed quickly. Unlike some students who drop out after a month or two, her words were pointed. Fiona's parents lowered their heads. "I remember the day she found out she'd have her own solo. She was overjoyed. I asked how many tickets she wanted. She said 4. She wanted her whole family to come see her. I saved those 4 seats, but that night, they stayed empty. No one ever came." Fiona's mother knew exactly which performance she meant. Grace had suddenly come down with a high fever that day. The 3 of them had gone to the hospital. She'd thought about going, but Grace held her hand, calling Mom, Dad, again and again. Her heart ached for the girl, this child who had no parents around. And so, she stayed. After that, whenever I asked if she needed tickets, she always said no. Ms. Robin folded her arms and gave her a look. "We parents all know, money can always be earned again, but a child's growth? Once you miss it, you never get it back." When Fiona took the stage, she wore a stunning floor-length gown and bowed gracefully. Music poured from her fingertips like a stream of flowing water. The 3 of them sat below, watching. Fiona's mother suddenly realized. Fiona had long since grown up. Her daughter had become someone far better than she had imagined. When the piece ended, Fiona gave her thanks. Ms. Robin clapped along for a moment and said, "People's hearts are always biased. But if a parent can't even favor their own child, if they choose someone else instead, well, there really isn't a more foolish parent in the world. Is there?" Fiona's mother knew those words were also for her. Everyone who loved Fiona would speak up for her. They all resented her family for their stupidity, their blindness, their failure to see what they had. And so did she. "But it's okay now, Ms. Robin stood up, smiling brightly. "Our Fiona has grown into a truly remarkable young woman." She walked toward Fiona, who had just finished her curtain call. Fiona's mother saw her daughter's face light up the moment she saw Miss Robin, but the expression she gave her mother was the same cold indifference as always. The past felt like a blade, constantly slicing at her heart, constantly reminding her they had brought this on themselves. Her daughter had already grown into someone incredible. But still, she would never again turn to her with bright eyes and say, "Fiona loves mommy the most." Story 2. Chapter 1. On family day at the kindergarten, my husband Sam made an excuse about work, telling me and our daughter Roma not to attend either. Seeing Roma's sad little face, my heart ached, and I decided to take her myself. As soon as we arrived, I saw Sam holding a little boy in one arm and holding Julia, his childhood friend, by the hand with the other. They looked like a perfect little family, chatting happily together. It wasn't until he saw me and Roma that Sam frowned slightly and let go of Julia's hand. "Zoe, don't get the wrong idea. Julia's raising her child alone. And today is his 5th birthday. She just wanted him to experience a father's love for once," he said. I gave him a meaningful look before squatting down to take Roma's hand. "Sweetheart, say hi to the uncle," I said. Julia quickly took the little boy from Sam, her face full of apologies. "Zoe, please don't be upset. Sam was just being kind. The boy has never had a father. And today is his 5th birthday. Sam was just helping fulfill that dream," she explained. I stared at her with a half smile. "If that's the case, now that Roma and I are here, shouldn't we have Sam back? After all, we are his real family." Julia hesitated, but the little boy in her arms was not having it. "Daddy, You promised today would be just me and Mommy, he shouted, glaring at me with surprising intensity for a 5-year-old. I raised an eyebrow. Daddy. Huh? Before I could say anything, Sam stepped in front of them protectively, his tone growing impatient. Zoe, you have a child too. Can't you have a little empathy? I've known Julia since we were kids. It's just one day. Just one day I'm spending with them. Do you really need to make a big deal out of it? I laughed, feeling more incredulous than amused. Was Julia's misfortune somehow my fault? Just then, other parents started arriving with their children. One mother greeted us cheerfully. Morning, Oscar's mom and dad. You three are always here together for family day. Unlike my husband, he's always too busy with work and never cares about our kids' activities. Julia returned the greeting awkwardly while a flash of panic crossed Sam's face. I couldn't help but question. Sam, is this what you meant by just for today? Sam, flustered and angry, grabbed my arm. Zoe, there are a lot of people here. Stop making a scene. He then glanced down at our daughter and lowered his voice. Making a fuss won't be good for Roma either. You know. Hearing her name suddenly mentioned, our daughter looked around, confused, but it seemed she couldn't quite understand what was happening, and just clung tightly to my leg, her small hand already sweaty in mine. Sensing her unease, I knelt down and gently stroked her hair, whispering softly, with Mommy here, there's nothing to fear. I watched as Sam walked away with Julia and Oscar. Soon, they were surrounded by people. Someone greeted Sam with a fawning smile, praising him for his career success, becoming the CEO of a billion-dollar company in his early 30s. Sam, of course, looked arrogant and proud, practically wagging his tail in delight. Julia gazed at Sam with glowing admiration, her expression full of pride. Oscar, who was in Sam's arms, suddenly turned back to glance at me, making a mocking face. I couldn't help but sneer inwardly. It seemed Sam was getting ahead of himself. Though I had reduced my time in the company due to pregnancy and raising our child, 75% of the group's shares were still in my hands. I was the real one at the helm. As for him, he was just the one who latched onto me back then, given a managerial title out of consideration for our marriage. I opened my phone and sent a message to HR. Bruno, remove Sam from his manager position. Announce it internally next Monday. Then, I messaged our legal counsel, Oliver. Draft a divorce agreement for Sam and me. Oh, Sam, if you think you can freeload with force, you'd better see if I'm willing to let you. Chapter 2. After a while, the kindergarten family day event officially began. Each family sat at their assigned table, and Roma looked at Sam sitting in the row ahead, sadly asking me, Mommy, why isn't Daddy sitting with us? I pinched my daughter's soft cheek. She's still so young, she shouldn't get involved in all these messy matters. Because Mommy is a superhero. So to be fair, Daddy is helping other kids. Just then, the kindergarten teacher announced that the first activity, building with blocks, was about to start. She smiled and said, there's a prize for first place, a Lego spaceship. Roma suddenly got excited and pointed at the spaceship. Mommy, I want that. All right. Then let's do our best. As the sand in the hourglass was about to run out, Roma raised her small hand and shouted excitedly, Teacher, we're done. The teacher came over and nodded, about to announce our win, when a little boy suddenly rushed over from the front row. It was Oscar. He pushed down our completed blocks and arrogantly declared, Now first place is mine. Roma stared at the fallen blocks, her eyes filling with tears. In her anger, she picked up a large wooden block and threw it at Oscar. The first thing Sam said when he came over was, Roma, how could you hit someone? Apologize to your brother Oscar right now. Roma stood her ground, refusing. No, he knocked down my blocks first. He's a bad person. I firmly stood behind my daughter. Sam, anyone with eyes can see who started this. Oscar should be the one apologizing to Roma. Julia also came over and tugged at Sam's arm. Sam, let it go, okay? Let's not make a fuss. Adults shouldn't hold grudges against children. The kindergarten teacher also tried to smooth things over. Just then, Roma suddenly burst into tears. Daddy, why didn't you protect me? Why are you scolding me? That one word, Daddy, stunned everyone into silence. and their gazes moved between me, Sam, and Julia. Sam's face flushed and paled by turns, while Julia seemed to want to say something but held back. At this point, Oscar stood with his hands on his hips in front of Roma and shouted angrily, "Who's your daddy? Stop calling him that. He's my dad." My daughter hiccuped in fright, her eyes brimming with tears, crying out in her soft, broken voice, "Daddy, say something." My heart ached terribly, and I gave Sam a hard glare, my voice becoming harsher. "Sam, are you not going to explain? Are you just going to let my daughter and me be misunderstood like this?" Sam glared back, scooping Oscar into his arms. "Explain what? Today, I am Oscar's dad." He even patted the back of Oscar's head as he spoke. In an instant, the other parents began pointing at me and my daughter, whispering, "Why is this kid calling the wrong person dad?" It seems like Roma's family never used to come to family day events, and this time it's just her mom. Could she be someone's mistress? I heard that Sam is a CEO of a big group, super rich. Maybe Roma's mom is trying to seduce Sam, and her daughter caught her in the act, getting it all wrong, while my daughter and I were being attacked by gossip. Sam remained silent, comforting Oscar instead. Julia stood there, glancing at me while barely holding back her laughter. I hugged my inconsolably crying daughter, gently patting her back. As much as I wanted to slap these two scumbags, now was not the time. I couldn't let my daughter be hurt anymore. At that moment, someone trying to flatter Sam said obsequiously, "Young Master Oscar really looks like Sam. You can tell they're father and son." I glanced up at Sam, seeing a flash of guilt in his eyes before he awkwardly laughed it off. Julia, on the other hand, looked incredibly pleased with herself. I had met this mother and son pair before, but I had never noticed the resemblance between Sam and Oscar until now. Meanwhile, Roma's crying didn't stop. I had no choice but to ask the teacher to take us to the rest area, hoping to calm my daughter down. Once we were in the rest area, I coaxed Roma until she finally fell asleep, her swollen eyelids still red from crying. My heart twisted into knots just looking at her. I tiptoed out and, when I reached the corridor corner, dialed HR and legal counsel. "Bruno, Oliver, bring my marriage certificate with Sam, the drafted divorce agreement, and the company termination letter to Good Baby Kindergarten. Now, and be quick." Just as we were discussing the details further, a sudden scream echoed through the hallway. It was my daughter's voice. My heart plummeted into my stomach. Chapter 3. At the end of the hallway, near the bathroom door, Roma was pushed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Leading the group around her was Oscar, his face twisted in anger. "That's what you get for calling my dad yours. Today, I'm going to beat you up." With that, he kicked Roma in the stomach. Roma screamed in pain, trying to escape, but was held back by the other boys behind him. "Serves a mistress's child right to be beaten up. My mom says bastards like you should have been choked at birth." Roma waved her tiny hands in defense, crying so hard she could barely breathe. "You're lying. He is my dad. Daddy, Mommy, come save me. Roma hurts so much. Daddy, Mommy, where are you?" The moment I saw it, my brain buzzed with a loud roar. Blood rushed through my veins, and every vessel in my body felt like it was about to burst. When those boys saw me, they glanced at each other, noticed my furious expression, and scattered like frightened birds. I pulled Roma into my arms, realizing then just how badly she was shaking, and quickly called for an ambulance. "Don't be scared, sweetheart. Mommy's here. Mommy's here." When the ambulance finally arrived, the other parents all watched curiously, wondering what had happened. I rushed to the ambulance with Roma in my arms. On my way, I saw Sam building blocks with Oscar, a smile on his face, while Julia stood by, wiping sweat from his forehead. When Sam heard the commotion, he looked up, confused, and started walking over to me, asking, "What happened? What's wrong with Roma?" But Julia grabbed his hand. "Sam, you promised to spend the day with Oscar. You don't know how happy he was when I told him last night you'd be with him all day." Sam hesitated for a moment, and by then I was already in the ambulance with Roma. Roma had already lost consciousness, and the doctors began checking her vitals and performing emergency treatment right in the vehicle. One of the female doctors lifted Roma's dress and couldn't help but exclaim, "How could anyone lay such a heavy hand on such a small child?" I broke down in tears, my heart full of panic. Roma's once milk-white skin was now covered in bruises, blue and purple, and there was a fist-sized contusion on her side. Her body was trembling uncontrollably. Suddenly, the doctor's voice became urgent. "Quick, bring in the equipment." It took 2 hours for Roma to be stabilized. Those 2 hours felt like an eternity. Remorse and hatred intertwined within me, growing and raging, crashing around inside my body. My mom was crying in distress, blaming me. "How could you take care of your child like this? She's been through so much." Roma, lying in the hospital bed with an 4 drip, weakly opened her eyes and looked at me, confused. "Mommy, why do they all say that Roma is a child daddy doesn't want? But Roma clearly has a daddy. Why won't daddy protect Roma anymore?" I gently kissed her forehead and told her, "Mommy will always protect Roma. Roma is mommy's most beloved treasure. As for daddy, it's us who don't want him anymore." When I returned to the kindergarten, the family day event was in its final activity. Each family was working together to paint a family portrait. Sam was patiently coloring the picture while Oscar nestled quietly in his arms, and Julia looked satisfied as she took photos of them. What a picturesque, peaceful, happy family scene. But why should my daughter be lying in a hospital bed while the wrongdoers enjoy happiness here? I charged straight over, and without a word, slapped Julia hard across the face. The force of the blow caused her to stumble and crash into the edge of the table behind her with a loud thud. The sudden sound of the slap stunned everyone. Sam shouted at the top of his lungs, "Zoe, what are you doing?" He quickly pulled Julia into his arms, his eyes full of concern. "Julia, does it hurt?" Tears rolled down Julia's cheeks as she shook her head, putting on a pitiful act. "Zoe, did you misunderstand something? I apologize to you." I let out a cold laugh. Isn't a verbal apology a bit insincere? With that, I raised my hand to slap her again. Seeing this, Sam moved to stop me. I changed direction and slapped Sam straight across the face, leaving a clear mark of 5 fingers on his cheek. Sam covered his face, stunned for a second, before flying into a rage. "Zoe, are you out of your damn mind? I was being nice to you, wasn't I?" At that moment, the kindergarten teacher hurried over to break up the fight, asking me what was going on. I pointed at Oscar, gritting my teeth. That brat took advantage when I wasn't looking and gathered other boys to beat up my daughter. No sooner had I finished speaking than Julia quickly said, "Impossible. Oscar is well behaved." "Sam, you have to believe me." I took a step forward. "Impossible? Then why do you think the ambulance just came?" Once again, Sam stood protectively in front of Julia and Oscar. "They're just kids. What bad intentions could they have? Rough housing is inevitable, but you're overreacting. And on top of that, you start hitting people. You're nothing but a shrew." Seeing my aggressive stance, Sam extended his arm and forcefully pushed me to the ground. My hand scraped against the floor, and blood oozed out. Those who wanted to curry favor with Sam joined in, mocking and insulting me from above. Is she here trying to scam them? She knows Sam's rich and came here to blackmail him. Look at yourself. You'll be crying once the company's legal team deals with you. Do you think she tried to seduce Sam before and failed? And now she's here to cause trouble? She should look at the difference between herself and his wife. Definitely a mistress attitude. Just then, the roar of engines approached, and soon 3 luxury business cars stopped in front of the kindergarten. An observant parent couldn't help but exclaim, "The cars have the company logo on them, they're for the top executives." Someone else, ever eager to flatter, added, "Sam really is impressive. He called the company's legal team right away." After saying that, the person spat at me with a paw, gloating, "You're done for. You damn mistress." Everyone knows S Group's legal team is undefeated in luching. Get ready to pay up and end up in jail. One of the parents, an influencer, was already filming excitedly with their phone. Didn't expect to catch such a big story today. Guys, make sure to follow. I'm live streaming what happens to this shrew. Julia came to her senses, gazing at Sam with a face full of joy and affection, while Oscar by her side looked even more smug. Chapter 4. Amidst the adulation of the crowd, Sam's eyes flashed with disbelief as he looked down at me. I propped myself up on the ground, slowly standing despite the pain, a cold smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. Seeing the commotion getting out of hand, the kindergarten principal hurried over, frowning as she spoke to me earnestly. Roma's mom, just stop being stubborn. You should apologize to Mr. Sam and his wife right away. You can't go against someone that powerful. I shook my head at the principal, and she sighed as she looked at me. I know you're not the type to lie, but reality is reality. The power of those century-old conglomerates is not something you can challenge. By this time, the suited professionals who had gotten out of the business cars were already approaching the activity area. Those who were here for the spectacle, Sam's sycophants, and the parents filming on their phones all wore expressions of anticipation, waiting for a good show to unfold. They winked and smirked at me, gleeful. Only Sam took a step forward, staring at me as he spoke in a low voice. You called them here? You're so petty. Do you really have to make a scene? Don't forget, I am still the general manager of the company. I am their direct superior. I smiled at him. Then let's wait and see. Julia, seeing me talking with Sam, hurried over, still putting on her usual pretentious, tea-drinking demeanor. Sam, I know you feel sorry for me and brought the legal team from S Group to support me, but in today's matter, I was at fault too. Let's just leave it at that. As she spoke, she looked pitiful, purposely showing Sam the red mark on her face where I had slapped her. Her son, Oscar, reached out to push me. That's what you get for bullying my mom. Just wait, when Dad's subordinates get here, they're going to beat you up so bad you won't know which way is north. I took a step back. Without support, Oscar stumbled forward and fell to the ground with a thud, a large bump already forming on his forehead. What are you doing? Bullying a child? What if he's hurt? Sam's eyes widened in anger. I couldn't help but snap back. Sam, are you blind? Julia quickly pulled Oscar into her arms, crying. He's just a child. How much strength could he have? He just pushed you a bit. Why did you have to be so rough with him? Zoe, if you have a grudge, take it out on me. The child is innocent. Julia's words seemed to provoke Sam even more, and in his rage, he lunged as if to grab me. At that moment, the suited men had already reached us. Everyone in the crowd was waiting to see me get detained by the security guards that had come with them, then to see Sam teach me a lesson and stand up for Julia. Yet suddenly, the muscled bodyguard stepped in front of me. He grabbed Sam's outstretched arm and, using brute force, flung him 2 meters away. For a moment, everyone froze in place. This was definitely not what anyone expected. Sam managed to regain his footing, shouting at the security guard standing between us. Are you out of your damn mind? I'm the general manager. I'm the one paying your salary. The sycophants who had just been currying favor with Sam cautiously looked between him and me, asking, Sam, is there some kind of mistake with these people? Others seemed to snap out of their daze, glancing at each other, utterly bewildered by what was happening. Julia clung to Sam, her face full of grievance. Sam, aren't you the general manager of S Group? You must stand up for our Oscar. It was clear Julia wasn't thinking straight. She still believed these people had been called by Sam. Her expression showed both resentment and triumph, without even trying to hide it. Just then, another group of suited men approached, led by a man in gold-rimmed glasses. It was Oliver, head of legal at S Group. Someone knowledgeable in legal circles whispered excitedly, "That's the real legal genius. Can't believe I'm seeing him in person today." Yeah, I've heard of him. He's had no losses in litigation for 5 years straight. Oliver walked past Sam, completely ignoring Sam as he called his name, and respectfully greeted me, "Boss, everything has been done as you instructed." His voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for everyone to hear. They all looked at me in shock. What? Boss? Did I hear that right? Aren't these people from S Group? Isn't Sam the general manager of S Group? Why are they all on Zoe's side? The influencer who was live streaming looked ecstatic. Guys, we've got a major plot twist here. Julia's face showed a hint of panic, though she tried to maintain her composure. Sam, what's going on here? Aren't these the people you called? Sam ignored her and instead turned to talk to me. He lowered his voice. Do you really want to make things ugly for both of us? No matter what, I'm still Roma's father, and this will hurt her. Then, as if giving an order, he said, "Get these people to leave, and you should leave as well. We can talk about this at home." Zoe, stop this nonsense. I spoke each word with conviction. How dare you mention Roma? You don't deserve to be her father. I shifted my gaze from him and looked around at everyone present. My voice rang out. Everything that happened today will have a resolution. Chapter 5. Allow me to reintroduce myself. I am Roma's mother and the chairwoman of S Group. And him. I pointed at Sam in the distance. He is nothing but a son-in-law living off my family. I took the marriage certificate from Oliver's hand, displayed it, and then threw it hard onto the ground. In that moment, I saw the embarrassment flash across Sam's face. But this was just the beginning. Everyone's jaws dropped. Their eyes widened. The parent influencer wasted no time giving a close-up shot of the marriage certificate on the ground. Guys, there's a twist here. Look at this. This is the real mistress. She then tried to point the camera right at Julia's face. Julia, whose shocked expression had not yet recovered, quickly raised her hand to cover her face. Stop filming. Other parents in the crowd also began whispering among themselves. So, we misunderstood? Who wouldn't? This is outrageous. What kind of person leaves his wife and daughter alone to take care of his mistress and her child in public? I've never seen someone so shameless. Shameless plus shameless, definitely a perfect match. Those who had been fawning over Sam also began to change their tune, following the crowd and cursing Sam and Julia. Sam, humiliated and enraged, shouted, "Zoe, do you really want to embarrass me like this? How is Roma supposed to face the world after this?" Julia, seemingly understanding what was happening, began to cry, acting pitiful. "It's all my fault. I asked Sam to help. Oscar has never had a father, and I just asked Sam to pretend to be one for a day. Who would have thought? It's all the fault of us poor mother and son." With that, she fell to her knees in front of me, slapping her own face. Sam and Oscar rushed to stop her. Sam's eyes red as he glared at me. "Do you really have to push Julia to her breaking point? There will always be people in this world who use weakness to gain sympathy." After Julia's display, some people indeed began to feel sorry for her. Sigh. She's just a pitiful mother who wanted to give her son a perfect 5th birthday. Using power to push around a mother and her child, this is too much. I stepped forward, gazing at her with amusement. Was it really just helping out? Julia froze. I didn't give her time to react, and Oliver handed over an investigation report. The crowd erupted. Back then, when Julia gave birth, Sam was by her side the whole time, with hospital records and footage from the maternity ward as evidence. Julia did give birth out of wedlock, but the child always had a father, Sam. No wonder. For years, whenever Sam bought gifts for Roma, he always bought one for Oscar as well. I hadn't thought much of it then, but now, looking back, the inconsistencies were glaring. I remembered a year when the flu swept through Luching. Roma caught it too, and was ill, listless all day. I managed to get some antiviral medicine for her, but by the next day, it had disappeared. I questioned Sam. He avoided eye contact, saying that a friend's child had a high fever that wouldn't break, and it was life-saving medicine. I was furious. Someone else's child might be dear to them, but my Roma is my everything. Roma was in pain for a long time, burning up with a fever. Her skin flushed red. My heart clenched with her suffering. Later, Sam slipped up, and I learned the truth. The medicine had gone to Julia, and Oscar hadn't even been sick. Julia had simply said, "Sam, I'm scared Oscar might catch it too. I want a dose just in case." And Sam gave it to her. That was when I started having doubts and began an investigation. Today, I finally had solid proof. "Sam, Julia, you pair of dogs, what else do you have to say?" I flung the evidence at their faces, the crisp A4 paper slicing across Sam's cheek, drawing blood. Everyone else was furious too. This was absolutely despicable. He already had a child with someone else, yet still clung to a wealthy woman, using her assets to support his ex and his illegitimate son. Chapter 6. Sam wiped his face, then suddenly laughed, his face cold as he stared at me. "So you know everything." "So what? We're already married. Even if we get divorced, I can still get half of your assets. Besides, he smirked, while you were pregnant and giving birth, I took firm control of the company's business department. I could easily start my own company. I laughed too. Without my silent permission, those key business talents and overseas graduates would never have followed his orders. Besides, all the important decisions in the company were made by me, while he was just a piece on the board, displayed in the open. But clearly, this piece didn't think of itself that way. I signaled for Oliver to hand him the divorce agreement. What? Leaving empty-handed? Zoe, you're dreaming. That's absolutely impossible. If you want a divorce, you must give me half of your assets. Sam tore up the divorce agreement, glaring at me provocatively. I then had HR hand him the termination letter. Once again, he tore it to pieces, watching the pieces of paper flutter in the air. I just smiled. None of it mattered. After all, today was just a notification. As everyone knows, my legal team has never lost a case. Handing the matter over to the law actually made things much simpler. But with the influencer's live stream, Sam and Julia's reputations were already in tatters, socially dead. As Sam and Julia tried to leave with Oscar, I had the bodyguards block their way. Sam turned to me, his face dark and sinister. What do you mean by this? I simply turned my gaze toward the influencer mom. Would you like your views to reach an even higher peak? The influencer's eyes lit up instantly. I nodded to Oliver, then let's start playing it. The projector at the front displayed footage of my daughter, followed by the scene of Oscar leading the boys surrounding her. That's what you get for calling my dad yours. Today I'm going to beat you up. Oscar kicked Roma in the stomach, causing her to cry out in pain, trying to escape, but being held by the boys behind her. A mistress's kid deserves to be beaten up. My mom says bastards like you should have been choked at birth. Roma waved her little hands in resistance, crying so hard she could barely breathe. You're lying. He is my daddy. Daddy. Mommy. Come save Roma. Roma hurts so much. Daddy. Mommy. Where are you? Many parents present could hardly bear to watch, and quite a few mothers were brought to tears. At this very moment, reliving that nightmare again, I wanted nothing more than to kill that little brat. Seeing the ferocity in my eyes, Sam became wary and shielded Oscar. Behind him, Oscar laughed out loud. That stupid girl deserved it. She shouldn't have tried to take my dad. I'll beat her to death the next time I see her. She's just a little bastard. I clenched my fists tightly, my heart bleeding. I couldn't even begin to imagine how helpless and scared my Roma must have been back then. It was her mother who failed to protect her. Don't worry, my dear. Mommy will definitely avenge you and make sure that those who did wrong face their consequences. The parents with a conscience all gasped in shock. This was far from childish mischief. This was evil in its purest form. What kind of child would do such things? Say such vile words? It had to be the parents who taught him. All the parents present empathized with me at that moment. They began demanding punishment for the parents of the children involved in hurting Roma. They must be expelled from the kindergarten. Yes. Or our children will be the next victims. Get them out of the kindergarten. Sam, Julia, and the parents involved in hurting Roma still felt it was no big deal, just kids being kids. Sam shouted, "What are you all yelling about? Kids fighting is normal. Why make such a fuss? I am Roma's real father, and I haven't made a big deal of it or pursued responsibility. What gives you the right to interfere?" I stared at him intensely. Sam, Roma is your daughter too. Watching her get bullied. Do you feel nothing? Did you not hear her crying out over and over again that she was in pain? That she needed her daddy's protection? Sam, do you really have no conscience at all? Roma is your own daughter. Sam seemed shaken by my words, though he still tried to save face. Roma just got a bit hurt. But she's fine now, isn't she? Is all this really necessary? Before I could respond, other parents couldn't hold back any longer. What kind of father says that? Just because he wants to protect his illegitimate son, he completely disregards his own daughter? That poor girl is so young and has such a heartless father. He's nothing but a beast in human skin. Lower than a beast. Sam, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment, glared fiercely at those pointing fingers at him. He turned to leave. Just then, The police arrived. I handed over the footage and the medical report of Roma's injuries. The officer spoke seriously. The parents involved need to come with us. It was at this moment that they finally began to panic, but it was already too late. The children might be minors, but that doesn't mean their guardians don't bear legal responsibility. Chapter 7. After that day, Roma gradually recovered, and I took all those who had hurt her to court. I told Roma, "Baby, Mommy will protect you, and Mommy will get justice for you." The little one, half understanding, snuggled into my arms, calling out to me in her soft voice, "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy." Faced with the enormous compensation, the parents came to my house to beg for forgiveness, hoping for a settlement. Some even brought their children and beat them mercilessly at my doorstep. "I told you not to bully others. I told you not to bully others." The child was beaten until he was sobbing and gasping. "Boss, we've already disciplined our children. You're a bigger person. Let this go. Please forgive us. Our entire family is kneeling before you." But I still wouldn't relent. I will never forgive anyone who hurt my daughter. As for Sam, Julia, and Oscar, the three of them now couldn't even leave their home. The scandal continued online, and countless people called Sam an ungrateful wolf and Oscar a wolf cub. Every day, people came to their door to throw rotten eggs and splash red paint. But that wasn't the end. In just a few days, I filed for divorce, filed a lawsuit to recover assets acquired during the marriage, and sued Sam for misusing company assets under his position. Sam tried to go to the company, but his access had long since been revoked, and he was left locked outside. He used to pride himself on being an executive, acting superior. Now, not only had S Group fired him, but no other company would want someone so shameless. He tried contacting his former colleagues, planning to start his own business, but they blocked him without a word. He rushed to me, demanding, "Did you tell them to do this? To interfere with their freedom?" I found it laughable. "Sam, you are nothing but a pile of stinking dog crap now. Anyone with a brain would know better than to stick with dog crap." I ignored his barking and had security throw him out. He shouted loudly, "I am the man of this house, the general manager of S Group. Who dares lay a hand on me?" No one paid him any attention. No one cared. Just like chasing out a stray dog, they threw him out. The divorce trial quickly took place, and the online scandal flared up again. Because of the severity of his infidelity and the significant negative social impact, he was left with nothing. He was indignant, yelling loudly in court, until the judge had the bailiff restrain him. Online comments flooded in. "This is truly satisfying. This is karma for the scumbag. Pa, he deserves it." The subsequent case of misappropriating company assets through his position was backed by solid evidence, enough to put Sam behind bars for several years. A few days later, he stopped my car on my usual route to the company. He looked utterly worn out, his beard scruffy, his hair almost entirely gray, a far cry from the spirited figure who once stood in high positions, admired by many. He was bent over, finally lowering his head. "Zoe, I was wrong. I've already ended things with Julia. I promise I won't have anything to do with her again. After all, I'm still Roma's father, for Roma's sake. Can you please forgive me? Zoe, let's get remarried. Give Roma a complete family. Let me return to S Group. I don't need to be the general manager. Just a director would be enough." At that moment, I sat in the luxury car, looking at Sam indifferently through the half-open window. "Sam, you really think too highly of yourself. Back in the kindergarten, when Roma needed you to protect her, where were you? Do you even deserve to mention Roma?" I instructed the driver to drive away, leaving him far behind, just like Roma and I have left him far behind in our lives. The next time I heard news about Sam, he had already gone to prison. As for retrieving the assets Sam had transferred to Julia, that was too easy for the legal team. The legal team informed me that even the house Julia was living in had been secretly bought by Sam. Now, Julia could only rent a place in an inner-city village. Like Sam, her reputation was ruined, and no company dared to hire her. She had once tried to set up a small stall, but netizens quickly recognized her and smashed her stall to pieces. After that, she had no choice but to live by scavenging. The children who had attacked Roma were also expelled from their school at the request of other parents. It was said that even when they went to other kindergartens, they were not well received by the teachers. It's understandable, after all. What parent would want their child playing with kids who have violent tendencies? As for Oscar, he went to a new kindergarten where he was mocked as the child of a mistress. In a rage, he lost his temper and ended up fighting with a group of 6-year-olds. The outcome was predictable. He was no match for them and was beaten up badly, to the point of bleeding. A hospital check revealed a concussion and a broken leg. No kindergarten would accept him after that. Julia, torn between anger and heartache, tried everything she could. But in the end, she had to take Oscar with her to scavenge. I saw the mother and son again in a street food alley. Both were filthy, with messy hair, digging through one trash can after another. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a luxury car, on my way to order Roma her favorite queen cake.